For a long time in my yoga asana practice and in my classes, I undervalued the role that strength plays. And I think the biggest reason for this is I always perceive strength to be a function of physique and performance. And while physique and performance are fine if those are things that people want to cultivate, for me, those weren't the attributes that I was looking to build on the yoga mat or share with my students. But now, I have a much more comprehensive understanding of strength and the way in which it facilitates stabilization, longevity, and protects our structure. In fact, this shift in perspective has led me to get multiple strength and conditioning certifications, and I'm beginning to incorporate resistance training components in all of the modules of my 300-hour advanced teacher training program, not as a mandatory component, but as a bonus, as a supplement, because I understand that there are so many teachers and so many students nowadays that want to have a greater and more comprehensive education, not just in yoga asana practice, but in associated ways of being mechanically sound and well. Real quick, before we continue, if you would take a moment to please like and subscribe, it is incredibly helpful for the channel. Also, my 300-hour online teacher training is going to be starting in another couple of months. If you want more information in that, check the links below and go to jasonyoga.com. The first reason that strength is so important is that strength absorbs and distributes load, or it absorbs and distributes stress. You can think about it like this. Strength has a dampening effect. Think about sitting on a really firm mattress with good box springs. Or think about being in a car with good shock absorbers. In that situation, the pressure or the weight or the stress that's induced into that system is spread out over a larger surface area. It's not as concentrated. In that way, it is highly protective. So the more strength that we have, the more ability the body has to absorb physical demands. And this is important not just in life, but this is mechanically advantageous in yoga poses. For example, if you are doing a deep back bend and you're adding leverage to that back bend and parts of your spine are weak, then the stress, that mechanical force, is going to be more concentrated into those weak links. If instead, all of the spinal muscles and the accessory muscles are good and strong, then the stress that's being pushed into that system is not being concentrated into a single weak area. It's being distributed over a larger surface area. This plays an incredibly important protective role for the joint structure in all of the connective tissues. The second, and this is important for everybody, but especially those of us in the yoga practices that like to facilitate range of motion, strength produces stability that ultimately helps you control your mobility. Strength also produces a stable foundation for you to create more mobility on top of. So let's think about that second thing first. Imagine, everybody, I want to generate movements. Imagine that what I want to do right now to create motion is I want to stand up. How would I stand up? I would push my feet down into the floor, and that would create the counter force that allows me to stand. But imagine that I'm standing on something that's unstable or wobbly, or imagine I'm standing up on a paddleboard or a raft. If I press down, I'm not going to get that same amount of ground reaction force because I'm pushing or pressing or exerting force into an unstable surface. So even though people will tend to think that mobility and stability, or that strength and flexibility, are opposite sides of the spectrum, they support each other. I can produce more motion if I have a stronger, stable, stronger base to actually exert that motion on top of. Secondly, the stronger a body is, the less naive our flexibility is. So flexibility is valuable, absolutely. But we're yoga practitioners, we already spend a lot of time doing this. What's so integral about the strength component, it allows us to control the body when it is in range. Just being able to go into a higher range and not having the control at that range, that's a liability, not an asset. Strength also improves proprioception and sensory feedback. This is important for everybody, but it is particularly important for students that have a much more mobile body type and for students that have less sensory or proprioceptive awareness or attunement in the first place. So we have to realize this. When you are doing an asana practice and or when you're doing resistance training or other movement protocols, you aren't just training your musculoskeletal system, you're also training your neural system. You're activating those neural pathways. And by creating more excitement and attunement in your neural pathways, you're much better able to sense your body in space and be skillful with it. You're able to sense movement, direction, load, and overall positioning. This has incredibly important mechanical value, but also this is largely what we're talking about when we're talking about attunement and attention in yoga traditions. In yoga traditions, especially Hatha yoga traditions, we're using our physicality not just for our physicality's sake, we're also using our physicality as a way to focus our attention. So by inducing greater sensations in the body and more excitation of neural connection, we're able to focus on what's happening in the moment. We're using our sensory experience to ground and focus our attention. Strength improves whole body function, and honestly, in my experience, it just feels good and it builds a sense of confidence. When I am teaching yoga, I want people to develop skills in the yoga room, but I always want those skills in the yoga room to be transferable to daily life. Now, some of the skills that teachers build in the yoga room are psycho-emotional, philosophical, and spiritual skills that we're transferring into daily life, but we're also building mechanical skills. And a human body, for it to be functional, for it to have good metabolic characteristics, for it to have good stability, for it to have good endurance, for it to be able to tolerate life for as long as we're blessed to have it, strength facilitates and coordinates all of those functions. And when we have a body that works in a more integrated way because it has a good balanced strength profile, it works more efficient, it works more evenly, it works more congruously. Finally, strength complements flexibility. As a yoga practitioner and teacher, I never worry that I don't have enough opportunities to create flexibility, range of motion, and elasticity. Whether you're a yin practitioner, a hatha practitioner, a hot yoga practitioner, a flow yoga practitioner, opportunities for lengthening your tissues are everywhere. It's so implicitly baked into the mechanical way that we do what we do. But in a way, we're so good at that we can have a significant amount of pattern overload. Because we're so good at creating flexibility, because we're so good at creating mobility, because we're so good at creating elasticity, we're not gonna vilify those things. But we're gonna say, because I am so good at creating length, it's also really important that I create strength and that I create firmness and that I create tone and then I create this stability and this dampening effect and the neuromuscular ability to control my range, right? And so as a yoga practitioner especially, because we love our long, slow, deep opening, it's that much more beholden on us to create the complementary muscular quality. There are different kinds of strength, and there are many different protocols for creating it, both of which are beyond the scope of this conversation. There are things that I'll be creating more content for you on. There's things that I'm building deeply into my online trainings. But I wanted to have this conversation as a longtime yoga practitioner, that just now sees and appreciates the full spectrum and value of strengthening in a way that, like I said at the beginning, I just didn't used to perceive. Strength, again, is not, as a yoga practitioner, about performance, because this isn't a performative process. But strength is so vital to the healthy functioning of our human system that it's something for all of us, especially as committed yoga practitioners, to become more, to start to hear the value and start to understand and start to break down some of these walls or some of these unnecessary differentiations between how we work with the human body and facilitate wellness and skill on the yoga mat or with resistance cables. Those of you that do resistance training, let me know what kind of training protocols or what your favorite approach is in the comments below. And anyone that's intimidated or concerned or doesn't quite know where to start, let me know what kinds of questions you have about especially being a yogi and starting to incorporate some resistance training or some sort of external load training. And it will help me know what kind of content I can keep creating for you in this channel. As always, thanks a ton for checking it out. Make sure to like, subscribe, all those things, and I'll see you soon.